Welcome. I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host of Community Forum. And I have the privilege to have with me today David Richard, who is the co-owner of Organic Connection in Brewster, New York, and that is an organic food market. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Can you give just a brief overview for our viewers on how long you've been in the, I'll say, Danbury, Brewster area, and how you came into this line of work?
Well, there's two stories there. I moved to the Danbury, Brewster area. Actually, I live in Ridgefield, but I moved here about 6 years ago. I was in health book publishing then, and I moved out here because New York is the publishing capital of the world, and some of my authors, two of my best authors, and one of my great authors was out here in the New York area. So I moved out here, met his son through that relationship, and he and I struck up a friendship, and the outgrowth of that was our organic food store. There's also more family background, which maybe we can get into with other questions, but that's basically.
Oh, so that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So you used to be a publisher for health books, or?
Yes, for 10 years. I published about 50 different health titles. My family has been in the health food business since the since the 1940s, and my dad in particular started 13 health food stores in the Chicago area and a major vitamin company called Now Foods in the Chicago area, national supplement distribution. So I started in this business when I was 9 years old, 40 plus years ago.
So your family's been in the health business since 1940s. I mean, that was before it was even really like a known popular industry.
Even in the early 60s, before it really caught on, we would have maybe 2 or 3 people that came into our health shop a day. My dad hired a Cuban refugee who spoke very little English, and she, so between people not understanding what health foods were and this Cuban language barrier, we hardly sold anything.
Oh.
But it succeeded despite itself, and that's still an ongoing venture in the Chicago area.
So were you into organic foods back then? Or we probably didn't have as many.
There weren't as many choices.
Pesticides in foods anyway.
Oh, there were, but there weren't as many organic choices. The whole organic market wasn't really developed the way it is now. So it was produce was ugly, and nutritionally, and it was better, but it was very hard to bring it to market in the condition that people expect, produce to be in today.
For our viewers, I mean, there's a lot of information in the media on organic, eat organic. Now even stores like Stop and Shop are selling organic produce. Can you explain to our viewers what it means for a food to be organic?
Well, there's a technical definition and a more common definition. All food was organic basically before the 1900s, or before 1900. Even later than that, into the 20s, so almost all food was organic. It was only when the so-called Green Revolution occurred and people started using the NPK fertilizer and all sorts of reams of pesticides and herbicides and antifungals and all these chemicals that they put on, that all of a sudden things were not organic. So the whole world was organic until that happened. Then this Green Revolution changed everything. Then the standard became commercial, industrial scale food with all of these unhealthy additives in them. So that's the common definition. Is everything was organic until you adulterated it with this kind of foreign way of raising food. Getting back to the technical definition is regulated by the USDA and by certified agencies that work under the auspices of the USDA. Here in New England, it's the New England, the North Atlantic Organic Farmers Association, and that is a certifying body that puts their stamp of approval on various products to certify that they are organic. So these are very specific, strict standards, and a seal that's put on the product that says this is certified organic.
Yes, isn't it? I mean, we buy mostly organic foods in my house, actually, and so I'm always looking at different ways on the back of cereal boxes and different packaging, the way they describe what it means to be organic. And isn't it something like they have to have not used any chemical or fertilizers for 5 years, or?
Yes, there's very, very strict definitions.
Yeah.
And this is all a part of the sustainability movement and the earth, the ecological movement on behalf of the earth, the planet. So it has much, much larger ramifications than, you know, just the individual people that consume it. You're making a choice for a healthier planet, in a sense, as well as, you know, personal health.
In terms of the soil?
Well, yeah, one of the original organic pioneers, Sir Albert Howard, talked about the wealth of a nation being in the soil, and that was, in a sense, the real capital on which a nation traded. So,
that's interesting.
So we're losing, worldwide, we're losing tons, you know, incredible numbers of topsoil every year. And this is irreplaceable. Over time it can be regenerated, but the losses are irreplaceable. And this is all as a result of commercial farming practices and erosion of the topsoil. And organic practices preserve the topsoil, and you don't get the runoff of the chemicals destroying fish and other wildlife, and, you know, having its impact in humans as well.
So there's really a lot more ramifications, as you said. Other than, you know, yeah, you're eating healthier, but you're also helping to sustain the broader ecosystem.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a part of, you know, the two largest problems we're facing in the world are ecological, the global warming, and personal in terms of the healthcare crisis.
Yeah.
So organic addresses both those issues simultaneously by helping to improve the environment and
what's the difference between, what's the difference between organic and natural? Because some food's labeled organic and some's labeled natural, and I've seen organic and natural on the same label.
Yes. Well, natural has no technical definition. Natural just, in a loose sense, just means the way nature, you know, the way it is in nature. But
what the heck does that mean?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. What the heck?
I mean, you can see boxes of crackers that say natural. Well, there's no crackers in nature.
Exactly.
All natural crackers.
I suppose that means natural ingredients only. But you can see apricots that are bright orange with sulfur dioxide, and they label them as natural. There's no regulations that govern what is natural or what you can claim to be natural in a food product. So it doesn't have much meaning, really. Whereas organic has a very specific and legal meaning.
Yes, it's interesting because I go to the farmer's market and I've asked some of them, you know, I want to buy some organic, and they say, well, we're not organic, but because we haven't gone through the certification process because it's really stringent, but we don't use any chemicals, pesticides, or anything on our products. So what would you say to that?
Well, if you know the people who are growing the food and you trust them, you know, you buy based on that trust. But the seal of organic certification is a mark of trust that is, you know, more global than your personal trust. You know, I wouldn't have any problem trusting someone who I knew who grew the food, who I believe was honest.
So organic tends to be more expensive than the commercial produce. What would you say to somebody who would say, well, I can't afford to buy organic?
First, I'd say you can't afford not to buy it, because if your health is important, it's almost like a form of healthcare insurance. You're getting qualitatively and nutritiously more quality food. So what I've seen and what has been documented is that people are healthier who eat organic food.
Now, are there actual studies on that? I mean, intuitively, it seems like that would make sense. But
well, there are studies that show that organic food is more nutrient dense. You know, there have been plenty of studies on that particular aspect. That tomatoes are so much percent. I think it's like 23% more rich in vitamin C than commercial tomatoes, and so there are plenty of research on that.
So are you saying almost like pay now or pay later, meaning you can pay now, you know, more money out of your pocket to buy organic. If you don't, sort of, you may pay later in terms of what other health maladies potentially.
You will pay later. And the quality of life is the main benefit of, you know, eating organic food. So if you make that commitment and you feel better, all of a sudden the cost becomes very much less important. And as you see your medical care cost go down, which is a huge cost compared to your food bill for many people, then you all of a sudden say, well, why did I think that was so much more expensive? At the same time, if you're preparing your own food rather than eating fast food or prepared foods, eating out, you're saving a tremendous amount there, because it's the food preparation costs that are a big difference. And the final thing is, one of the reasons that organic is more expensive is because the government subsidizes commercial crops, but doesn't subsidize small-scale farming for the most part, like organic. There's now bills, you know, pending. There may have been some recent implementation of these, but by and large, organic farming has not been subsidized, whereas commercial farming has been, and so that results in a lower commodity price for the non-organic.
Yeah, why is the organic not subsidized?
Because they haven't had the political clout up to this point in time to you know, it's politics and it's numbers. And
well, you know, it seems like anything that comes down to economics. So now there's an increased demand with organics because people are reading lots of things, they're trying to get healthier. I mean, even if we look at just the food chain stores, I happened to mention Stop and Shop, but that's just, you know, they all have some sort of organic line now. And I mean, I'm hoping maybe that might mean that the prices might come down because there's increased demand.
And certainly as the subsidies, you know, as these bills go through, as the industry gains strength and, you know, the playing field is leveled in the legislative area, the prices will come down. You know, the relative price. Food prices as a total are going to go way up because of energy costs. So, but hopefully the difference will come down.
So, you started up this business in the area, just focused on organic foods. I mean, what have been your challenges in terms of educating people on the benefits? Because this is really a niche market. I mean, we hope it grows, but it's, no pun intended, but it is a niche market.
I suppose the biggest thing is to overcome the sense of this price differential and to make people realize that the quality of their food is the quality of their lives to a large extent. And part of that is an educative process, and part of it is just a personal interaction process where we get to know the customer, and it's always going to come down to them feeling the difference in their own lives.
Yes.
You know, so they come, they have something to eat, they buy some produce, they buy some meat or whatever it is, and they start feeling better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they tell their friends, and the friends come, and so it's a word of mouth. But the bottom line is just it has to be a personal experience that people have, where they recognize that there's a real benefit to consuming organic food.
I'm guessing that most of your customers probably are health conscious anyway. I mean, do you ever come across anybody that comes in who's a total junk food junkie, and they just decided, I have to get healthier, and what do you do with that?
Oh, I had a fellow that came in just today who was asking me about some detox that he wanted to pass a test for, drug screening for a new job. And of course, he was
trying to get all the drugs out of his system.
And of course, he was saying it was. He kept saying it was his friend. And then you could tell I didn't believe him, so he calls his friend on the cell phone. He's saying, "Oh, I'm getting your stuff now," and I could tell he wasn't talking to anybody. so yeah, we do get.
So what do you have? He has like 6 days to get drug-free or something?
Something, I don't know. And so you take these things with a grain of salt, and you move on to someone who's really interested in what you're doing.
So he just needed to get cleaned out for a week, and then go back to whatever.
Yeah, he said his friends smoked a lot, so.
Well, so do you have anybody who's is, let's say, a junk food junkie and is serious about trying to get a little healthier? And
I think we have people that come in various stages. A lot of, because we are such a well, how would you say this? We have very high standards with what we do. So we attract people who already have a strong philosophy about this. But we also attract people who just want to see what it's about. And some of them get hooked by the quality of the food. They try some meat and they say, I've never had meat like that before, or eggs, or, tomatoes, whatever it is, or apples, and they say, wow, that was really a delicious apple. And so they come back, on that basis.
Well, now it's interesting because from what you've said, it sounds like you've been eating this way all your life, and you've been in this environment, or swimming in this pond, if you will, your whole life. So how do you speak to somebody, because you probably don't have a frame of reference about junk food, do you?
Oh, yeah, a bit.
Do you ever eat junk food?
No, when I was a kid, every kid rebels, and I had my little period of rebellion.
Yeah.
Where I spent my whole allowance on candy and junk food. And
oh, you did do that?
Oh, yeah. And my family, my dad in particular was a little. But again, with me, it was a personal experience that said, okay, now I'm doing this, I'm unhealthy, I'm doing this, I'm healthy. And it became very clear that, there was different lifestyle choices you could make that really had a huge impact.
So when you went on the candy binge, you suddenly realized, I don't feel so great, maybe I'll go back to the nuts or something.
Exactly. It became, at a certain point, it became foreign to me to consume, Coke or, sugar or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I just felt I didn't feel right.
So you really live what you're trying to teach people?
To the best of my ability, yes, because it works for me.
Yeah. What's been your biggest challenge in starting up the store, just from an entrepreneurial standpoint?
I suppose it's been reaching people, getting them to the store, because once they're there, once they try things, it's like they want to come back.
Yeah.
But we might have picked a location that wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
Just in terms of drive-by traffic and things like that.
Yeah.
But so it's getting people there and then getting them to make that first commitment to try something.
Yes.
And once they do that, we largely have a customer.
Well, what's been your biggest achievement to date? How long have you been in business?
Year and a half.
Year and a half, okay.
Yeah.
So what's been your biggest achievement to date?
I think now on our newsletter we have about 2,900 people signed up.
Wow, 2,900.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And and we have 2,500 customer card holders that accumulate points and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of, and it's also, I think, beyond just those numbers, it's also creating a place that is, that we really feel we're putting some strong, healthy products out with strong standards and a philosophy behind them that, that organic is going to make you healthier.
Well, I know I've gotten your newsletters, and they've been very interesting and informative, just from the broader perspective. You know, as you mentioned, in terms of affecting the whole ecosystem. I mean, some very interesting educational articles that you have.
Yeah, and we have free documentary films that we show, and cooking classes, and you know, things to involve the community. We don't want to just be like a static marketplace, but more a dynamic community where people come there and they meet each other, they develop friendships around a kind of common way of eating and thinking.
What's your ultimate goal with this store? It sounds like to create a community environment.
Yeah, and we'd like to have it more of a center. To have holistic practitioners associated with it. The building is expanding, or being renovated rather, and so it'd be nice to have related businesses to ours in that same facility, so that it becomes more of a destination point for people to come for health as well as healthy food.
It sounds like a lot of your life has been around health topics.
All of it?
All of it. How do you stay current with, because there's a lot of changes happening today. I mean, how do you really stay current with all the information that's out there and know what's really legitimate and what isn't?
It's impossible to stay current with all the information.
Yeah.
You just try to keep up to some extent and learn the most important things that are going on. And so there are information sources for that. And you just try to do a bit of reading and just stay as current as you can.
What's been your biggest surprise in going down this road? Because leaving publishing and starting a store, I mean, that's kind of a shift.
I suppose what a challenge. I did retailing for many years, but retailing is really a challenge. It's really a challenge. Our customers are lovely, but at the end of a long week, sometimes they don't, when someone comes in an hour after closing, sometimes it doesn't feel quite so.
Yeah, when you're dealing with the public, I mean, that's a challenge.
So I think that's a challenge, and also overcoming some of the stereotypes about organic itself.
Oh, say more about that.
Oh, people can perceive it as being more expensive and as being not worth the value. So we kind of have to reinforce this over and over again that when you buy organic, you're getting something of great value. And we price fairly in order for people to be able to afford that. But we're not afraid of saying it's a bit more because it's worth more. But that's an education process.
Oh, in terms of the value.
In terms of the value.
It's interesting because I have a friend of mine who travels all around the world, so thinks nothing of paying for expensive trips, but then will say, oh, I can't buy organic, it's too expensive. So it's just a question of where people want to place their money.
That's exactly right. So many people have a certain fixed percentage that they allocate for food, and they say, that's it. Well, if you shift things around a bit, and your priorities are that first you want to be healthy and have a dynamic, healthy life, then all of a sudden, maybe some other thing becomes less important.
So that sounds like a good sort of appeal to somebody. What else would you say to somebody like my friend who is skeptical about trying organic, or it's an investment? What else would you say if they were sort of hesitant to go down that road?
Well, you come into the store and look at some of the people that are buying a lot, and see if they don't look different. One of my friends.
How do they look different?
They're just more alive.
Oh.
They're more alive. One of my friends had a son, and they had this conflict about what the son was going to eat. He was very pure. The son was very, I'm not doing that. And the deal that they eventually struck was that the son would go into the grocery store for a morning and watch people and see what they put in their grocery cart.
And what they look like?
and what they look like.
Oh, God.
And after he did that, there was no more
Buyers
argument.
beware.
After he did that, no more argument. He, towed the line and was, completely fine with a healthier diet.
Seriously?
Yeah, because he saw the junk food and the, people that just didn't look healthy, just did not look healthy. And then the ones who were buying the produce and the vegetables and the pure foods,
Yes.
all looked more alive.
Well, somebody can be buying all organic and still buy the crackers that are organic and still, right? I mean, is it that somebody who is buying all organic is lighter and more vital always than somebody who is not?
I don't want to make a judgment like that. I'm just saying, in general, you just look at the people and they look different.
Yeah.
We play this game where there's a very friendly restaurant and bar next door, and when people pull in and we've never seen them before, we kind of bet on which store they're going to, and even more than 9 times out of 10, we can tell which way they're going by how they look.
Oh, isn't that funny?
Yeah. Not to be judgmental about it, but it's just,
Yeah.
it seems to be a fact.
Yeah. So the organic definitely, I mean, it's scientifically proven that it has higher, denser
More nutrient dense, yeah.
Yeah.
More nutrients.
Well, I mean, if somebody's eating an Oreo cookie and somebody's eating an organic apple, I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious, yeah.
In that extreme. But if it's a conventional apple and an organic apple, you're still saying?
Still.
Okay.
Yeah, plus there's not the downside of the pesticides or the chemicals that have been put to protect the apple or in its growth.
So if somebody wanted to find out more about eating organically, what would you recommend? Are there key books or magazines that you would point people to?
Well, there's an Organic Consumers Association.
Okay.
So I would definitely recommend that. There's organic magazines, but I think the Organic Consumers Association would be my first
Okay. If somebody was interested in finding out more about Organic Connection, can you just give them your website?
Yes. www.organicconnection.com.
Okay, great. Thanks. So nice to have you tonight, David.
My pleasure.
I'm Susan Shaner. Until next time with Community Forum. Thank you.